Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Aaron Dean. Vice President Harris was joined by Latino members of the president's cabinet at the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute Conference. They were rallying support for critical issues like abortion rights, healthcare access, and expanded legal immigration pathways. Harris is emphasizing the importance of elections. She's also concerned about preserving Roe versus Wade. The vice president also condemned efforts to undo DACA. The Health and Human Services Secretary highlighted increased health care coverage among Latinos and blacks. The Homeland Security Secretary addressed the need for abortion access and better immigration pathways.
The vast majority of women who are going to be impacted detrimentally by the Dobbs decision are women of color, are women who are low income. And so we're doing everything we can to make it possible for women to get their services, whether it is in their home state or whether it's outside, making sure we protect contraceptive services. Come November 2024, hopefully the fight will go well enough that we won't find more states trying to restrict access to essential health care.
What we consider to be a humanitarian crisis is what the people endure on the journey to the border. In the hands of smugglers. We see so much trauma, so much tragedy, and that is why it is the focus of this administration to build lawful pathways for individuals to access, to be able to realize the country of opportunity that America is without placing their lives and their life savings in the hands of smugglers.
The conference comes at the beginning of National Hispanic Heritage Month. The Defense Department is sending 800 new active duty personnel to the U.S.-Mexico border. They're joining 2,500 National Guard members already in place. Department of Homeland Security officials are addressing the recent rise in migrant encounters. The U.S. military has long provided support to DHS on the border, and a surge of personnel to the area is not unprecedented. This September, we are celebrating the Bi Plus community alongside GLAAD. And this week marks Bi Plus Week. It's a 7-day period where we acknowledge and respect the resiliency of Bi Plus people everywhere. Actor and writer Ann Masse is also getting involved by penning an essay about arriving at her identity and how we all can embrace the progress. Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
Hi, I'm so good, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. Well, as we all know, Bi Plus Awareness Week is here, and you are opening up about your identity in a new essay. Can you tell us a little bit about what people can read in your essay without giving away too much?
Sure. Yeah, I came to the realization about my sexuality relatively later in life, and it was a really organic process. And when I decided to share about who I really was and my full identity with my husband, it struck me that it might be impactful to share that with other people, because I'm sure that I'm not alone in this. I think we're more used to the stories, like the coming out stories of, when people are teenagers or young adults. And I've been married for a long time to a cis-het man. And so I think sharing the perspective of someone like me might reach people who feel maybe afraid to come out or a little alone in their journey. So I just wanted to sort of put my heart on a platter for people to share.
Yeah. And if I'm correct, there's a connection between your hair growing up and coming into your identity. Kind of share that a little bit too.
Yeah. I mean, when I was little, I had, as you can see here, sort of wavy, curly hair, and I never thought anything about it. But as I grew up, it became really important to have straight hair. And my hair, I always got compliments on my hair. My hair was shiny and long and a beautiful color. And, people loved it when I straightened it. So I sort of associated straight hair with being a really important part of who I was and how I presented to the world. And I grew out of that at a certain point. I sort of embraced my hair in its more natural state and sort of still trying to figure out how it looks best and how I can treat it best and how it is part of the expression of who I am. And it was a very similar journey with my sexuality, really. And so I kind of tried to draw a parallel between those two things.
Okay. Well, as we know, you're an actor, comedian, you're a public advocate for the community. Did you ever see yourself in media growing up? And what does it mean for you to be in this position now?
No, I think one of the reasons it took me so long to understand my sexuality as someone who's bisexual and queer is I didn't see that growing up. I think we started to see representation of gay men and lesbian women on television and in film when I was younger. And I saw lesbians and went, well, that can't be me because I've had crushes on boys and I like boys. So I guess I must be straight. That must be all this is. And I know some people think what I do as a job as a writer and an actor isn't particularly important and, might be kind of trivial, but I actually think we have a gift and a responsibility as artists to show the world for how it really is, create an empathy machine, and actually have representation of all sorts of lived experiences and identities. And it was partially through watching more recent media, which I can't name by name because of the strike, that helped me to see myself as an adult who was not straight and who hadn't been able to realize that because I hadn't seen myself or my experience anywhere before.
It's Bi Plus Awareness Week. Why is it important for those within our community and allies to recognize and celebrate Bi Plus lives?
I think there's still a lot of biphobia and bi-erasure that happens. And I'm pretty new to being public about my sexual identity, and I've been very lucky in the sense that like my family was so supportive to the point where it almost didn't register. They were just like, okay, cool. It was not an issue. So in terms of like my closest community, coming out was a really safe experience. But I've had people within my community, even within my friend group, who said things like, well, what does this mean for your relationship? Are you and Nick, that's my husband, divorcing? Is there someone else? And those questions in and of themselves sort of hit me wrong. But when I went on to explain that, no, it was just that I really wanted to share about my full identity and who I was, they said things like, well, why are you even bothering to tell me? Isn't it a moot point? And it felt like this weird thing where my identity was only important so long as it was tied to my relationship or my sex life. And I think it's really important to understand that your sexuality is part of who you are, how you express yourself, how you experience the world. And being bi isn't like a gateway to being gay, and it isn't somebody who's just trying things out. It's a full identity, it's a full sexuality, and there are many colors to it and many ways of experiencing it. And so I think that both outside of and within the LGBTQIA plus community, it's important to recognize that. And I've been really lucky that within the community, I've been super welcomed. So,
there has to be a piece of advice or counsel that you would give your younger self as you look back and reflect. Like, what would you tell, I don't know, maybe 15-year-old Sarah Ann Masse or whomever younger than you? What would you say?
I'd say don't be afraid. I always thought of myself as this very fearless person, but I think when it came to certain things like sexuality, I was sort of afraid and confused. And I told myself this story that if I was noticing women or appreciating women, it was just sort of because of their beauty or the way they were dressed or because they were nice or friendly, and not allowing myself to experience those things as crushes or attractions, and sort of just to be more open and less afraid. And a lot easier said than done now. I grew up Catholic, and and again, my immediate family was always very welcoming of LGBTQ folks, and there was never any question about that. But your environment and your conditioning does start to impact you. And so even if it wasn't coming from my parents, it was still coming from the church or my community as a whole. And I didn't feel like there also wasn't anybody I could talk to. So I would just want to tell my younger self, like, don't be so afraid to talk about what you might be feeling, because you might be surprised to find that there are other people who feel the same way.
Thanks so much for watching Advocate Today. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store to stream us live, and you can even subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the Advocate channel, I'm Aaron Dean.